I hate you both. I've hated you ever since I can remember. I hate you, and I wish you both had cancer. Cancer? Yes, in the head.
I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore.
Pay no attention to that man behind the curtain.
Are you telling me you built a time machine out of a DeLorean?
This is the Stupid Answer Show.
Uh-oh. Sounds like somebody's got a case of the Mondays.
Hello there, children.
Hey, kids.
People seem to like me because I am polite and I'm rarely late.
Don't worry, I got an idea.
And now, the host of the Stupid Cancer Show, Matthew Zach.
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
Because he has a lot of chutzpah.
All right.
Hello and welcome to episode 377 of the Stupid Cancer Show, the voice of young adult cancer. I'm your host, Matthew Zachary, proud 20-year young adult brain cancer survivor, coming to you now from the Chemo Deck, our fabulous studio in downtown Manhattan. Broadcasting since 2007, the Stupid Cancer Show is a production of Stupid Cancer, the largest charity comprehensively addressing young adult cancer, online at stupidcancer.org.
I'm Kenny Kane, co-founder of Stupid Cancer, welcoming all of our first-time and returning listeners. Never miss an episode by subscribing to the podcast on iTunes and following us on SoundCloud.
It is not okay that 72,000 young adults are diagnosed with cancer each and every year. So, got cancer under 40? Sucks, huh? Time to get busy living, folks, because the Stupid Cancer Show is changing the world one chemo infusion at a time. Got a great show for you. My Breast Choice is a lifestyle blog and YouTube series that uses humor and honesty to explore the impact that a breast cancer diagnosis can have on a woman's body, mind, and soul. We're going to be joined by survivor blogger Aniela McGuinness to share her story, along with Elisabeth Finch, who is a survivor writer essayist in the Survivor Spotlight. Like I said, going to be a great show, and here we go. Hello. Kenny.
Hello.
Natalie.
Hello.
And Dr. Shawn Shapiro.
Hey.
Fresh from near-death experiences.
Yes.
God, I envy and I'm scared by that.
Yeah, I just got back from Jackson Hole. It was a good time.
I clearly, just you guys didn't know this, but Shawn texted me a photo of the 90-degree cliff he jumped off of after he lived, instead of sending me, here's the cliff I'm going to jump off of now, which I'm glad he didn't.
I should have just not responded for like 3 days just to see how you would have reacted.
Exactly. That's intense, dude. Really intense. Good for you.
It was fun.
Yeah.
It was on the bucket list, so I had to do it.
And I guess it's good to have a bucket list at, what are you, 30 now? How old are you?
29, almost 30.
Yeah, okay, you're hitting it. Good. Yeah, you and Kenny, that's right. The big 3-0 coming up.
Bucket list.
Oh, my goodness, yeah. Kenny, you got a weekend, you did a little jaunt to Austin to our friends at Big Commerce.
I did. My bucket list consists of ice and beer.
So what did you do over there? For those listening, Big Commerce is the, what do you call it, the back-end platform that runs
It's our shopping
store.
cart provider, yeah. I just talked about some upcoming mutual goodness.
No, it's good. We really like them.
We do.
Maybe we start the Austin Half Marathon team with Shawn and get them involved. Because I just said that.
Yeah.
There you go.
That's how quick that happens.
No, it really is. I was taken aback by how I was reaching out to companies that I would never normally think to reach out to say, how'd you like to run for us? And like, boom, they're already having like cage matches amongst their employees to figure out who can join our team. It's a good problem to have.
Yep.
Yep.
Absolutely.
And Mal, how are you?
I'm just Ducky.
You're not. Oh, Dandy and Ducky.
I'm mixing it up.
I'm going to start to read into why you choose different words every time.
I like to keep people guessing.
Well, for those of you that are following me, I'm on a crazy weight loss thing, and I went all plant, vegan, Metasaurus stuff, and I still got sick, which is ridiculous. Although,
yeah, germs don't care about kale.
They don't care about that. That's my new blog. Germs don't give a shit about kale.
Nope.
It's ridiculous. So I'll try to muscle my way through the show here. But we got some cool news. CancerCon nearly sold out again.
So close.
We're so close.
There's only a few spots left.
It's like that line that only a Gen Xer or millennial-ish might know from Total Recall. Get your ass to Mars is get your ass to Denver. Because you don't want to miss out. The waiting list starts very soon.
Yes. Like less than 10 people away.
And we have possibly 2 more patient scholarship initiatives launching next week on top of the one. So if you think you might qualify, what is it? Melanoma, Hodgkin's, and soft tissue sarcoma.
Yes.
If you have been affected by any of those, melanoma, Hodgkin's, or soft tissue sarcoma, you might be eligible to win a full scholarship to CancerCon. So go to cancercon.org and check your eligibility and apply. We get a lot of great people coming. We thank our partners for making this possible for them.
Yes, there's also a big announcement, CancerCon related, the Get Busy Living Award.
Oh, yes. Our annual Get Busy Living Award nominations are now being accepted. Was it getbusylive.ing?
Yes, and there's 2 awards this year. It's not just a survivor award. There's also a caregiver award as well.
Which is, I think, a great sign of the times. Not that we never didn't acknowledge caregivers, but to recognize that caregiving in that level of light is so important to who we are.
Yes.
It's a big deal.
It's exciting.
Yes. Toast Denver, we're closing in on our inaugural fundraising event in Denver.
Yep, April 7th. It's going well. Tickets are selling, and it's going to be an amazing night at the Art Hotel.
So even if you don't live in Denver, we'd love it if you'd consider supporting this event happening. You can go to toast.stupidcancer.org and make a contribution. And we're very excited.
Yeah.
Denver is excited about this too.
Yeah, one great way to support the cause from afar is to sponsor an angel ticket which is basically just allowing a cancer fighter, survivor, or caregiver to win a ticket to attend the evening.
It's a big deal.
Yeah.
That website again is
toast.stupidcancer.org.
And Kenny, you have a small little a route exploration excursion thing coming up. Minor thing.
We are setting out April 7th on the way to CancerCon. I believe it's 14 days, 12 cities, because we're going through some serious uncharted territory up north in our 2016 Camaro. So it should be interesting.
So we want to make sure that as many of our listeners are aware that the road trip could be coming through your neck of the woods. So go to, stupidcancerroadtrip.org.
That's correct.
Lists all the cities. We'll be posting where the meetups are happening and what we'll be doing in town while we're there. We can't wait to see you or meet you or have you come rejoin us if it's a community we've been to. Like I think we went to Chicago a couple of years ago, right?
Yep.
Really big deal.
It's going to be great.
Exciting. We're going to rack up more than 6,000 miles this year.
We'll find out.
And how many dog years and aged is that for you personally?
I don't know.
We've stopped counting.
Get in the car and keep going forward.
Exactly. So it's a big deal. It's very exciting stuff. Yeah, so that's kind of all I got. But let's start the show. Elisabeth Finch is a television writer, producer, and essayist. Past TV writing credits include True Blood and The Vampire Diaries. Her essays have been published in Elle, Marie Claire, Cosmo, and Fresh Yarn. She currently writes for Grey's Anatomy. And she wrote one of the coolest articles I've ever read called I Confronted My Doctor Who Missed My Cancer. I cannot wait to start speaking with this woman. Please welcome Elisabeth Finch to the Stupid Cancer Show. Hello.
Hi, guys.
How are you?
I'm fantastic. How are you?
So my first question is, how often do you have to correct people that your name isn't Eliz with a Zebeth?
Oh, I try not to bug too much about it. Most people in my life ends up calling me Finchy anyway, so I just
Finchy.
sort of let it go.
No American Pie reference there at all.
No, not even a little bit.
Not even a tiny little bit. I get it. I think I was first introduced to you when probably 80 grillion people from our community said, you got to read this piece. It just spoke to the heart and soul of where our hostility may or may not need to be, or how transference can work to your benefit. And I had to talk to you about this because it's so interesting. I also like the fact that you write for Grey's Anatomy. We've had several of the writers on the show, and we work very closely with Dan Shapiro, who I believe also counseled to the writers as well. Dan's a personal friend. I've known him since he was diagnosed in the late 90s. So, and you know, I'm a pop culture geek, and I love to see cancer in pop culture not be Deborah Winger in terms of endearment anymore, and that's really compelling for us. And you know, with Chasing Life and 50/50, there's been this sort of radical sea change in what we think viewers need to see versus what they might expect to see.
How great is that?
It's a big deal. And you're a part of that. So congratulations on everything. And
oh gosh, thank you. A very tiny small part, but I'm really happy to be a part of it.
Take the compliment.
You don't know me very well.
Yeah, so let's I mean, yeah, Getting Cancer at Not 80 is who we are as an organization, and you were 34, and we typically ask our guests, what was your life like before you were 34? And you were just probably living the dream, or some version of that, perhaps.
I was on my way to it. I was climbing up the ladder in terms of wanting to be a writer, wanting to be a TV writer specifically, and the writer's strike hit, and I was still an assistant on True Blood, and I was running around like the rest of my assistant friends going, how am I going to, make ends meet while the writers who are in the guild sort of shake this all out? How is that going to work for me? And I was really frustrated one day, and I went hiking to just sort of get my energy to a healthy place. And I twisted my knee as a freak accident, and I cracked my kneecaps in half, and I tore some cartilage, which was super painful. And it started me on this crazy trajectory where for several years they were trying to figure out what the heck was wrong and why did all the typical fixes for someone my age and my abilities, why it wasn't healing. I did 4 different types of surgeries, and we tried to be as minimally invasive as possible, but all the while I kept having this nagging feeling like something isn't right, because all the things they kept saying typically would fix it weren't fixing it, to a point where I finally said, guys, we have to do something. And I went to several different doctors all over the country to say, hey, are we doing the right thing here? And it finally came to pass where they said, you know what, like I had one surgeon who ended up being, as part of the article, ended up being someone who threw his hands up in the air and just said, I don't know what to do with you anymore, in a very dismissive way. But I still was someone who only had 17% of cartilage in my knee, and that's not normal for somebody my age. I was 34 at the time. So I was super frustrated, and I kept going to a couple other doctors saying, guys, I have to get back my life. And a doctor, I had to be flown out to Iowa, because there was a guy who agreed and said a knee replacement was the only seeming solution at this point, even though it was pretty radical for someone my age. But he agreed to do it. And when he was doing the procedure, he ended up finding a tumor in the lower part, like beneath my knee. Like the knee replacement went on successfully, found a tumor beneath my knee that shouldn't be there, that he hadn't seen on the scan previously, and said, just took the risk and took out the tumor because he thought, he didn't want to put me through another surgery, and found out that it was in fact a form of chondrosarcoma, which is, I later found out, is something where the average age of diagnosis is 51. It makes up for 1% of all cancers, or that did as of 4 years ago. So that was when my life went from normal to what the hell is going on now?
Well, your vigilance is both infuriating and inspiring from both sides of the conversation, because this is the story of the young adults that you are, no one takes you seriously. And we've had many primary care physicians on the show, and I speak to primary care. And where is the balance between, well, you're 1/10 of 1% of people that might get cancer versus I have to be super literate about everything that happens to you, and what does it mean when you're not 80 and keep going back to the doctor over and over again versus it should, if it's fine and they fix it, it's fine. But you're telling my story and the story of millions of other people who just are not taken seriously. Maybe not the first time, which could be a little leveraged, but the 10th time, maybe, yes. So
exactly. And I understand, in retrospect, I understand why I still remain like such an atypical profile. But what happens, unfortunately, and it's so many men, including yourself, have the same story, but this curious thing ends up happening when you are a female, that you get labeled more so than men as the hysterical one.
Yep.
You come in the third time, you're someone who just needs a good cry, who needs a little patience, who maybe we should give you, as it was prescribed to me, that I couldn't walk up a flight of stairs as a 34-year-old. I don't need antidepressants. I need antidepressants from dealing with you, doctor, who won't listen to me. But the problem is not my emotional state. And if I'm crying in the office, it's not because it's because I think there's something bigger going on here and you're not hearing me.
Right.
And one of the terrifying things that I've found along in my research is how often women in particular are given, when they're complaining about pain, whether it's in the ER, whether it's in their doctor, they're given sedatives instead of their male counterparts who are actually given pain medication. Because the idea is it's an emotional thing for women. There must be something wrong with your squishy little heart. It's not the fact that you have cancer growing in you.
That's a fascinating take, and it's something I actually completely believe and have seen personally. So congratulations on being being victimized.
Being the guinea pig, right?
Yes, being the guinea pig
one of many.
Of ignorance. Yes, exactly. So all right, so you finally get the knee surgery, and that's when So your early detection, early detection was knee surgery. Yes,
good job. Your knee's fixed, but you have cancer in both your. They removed it from my tibia, but I also had it growing in my spine, and because they had attributed all the back pain that I'd been experiencing the last 2 years as well, obviously, because your knee has been jacked. Of course, your back is going to hurt.
Right.
So they found chondrosarcoma that was hanging out in my lower spine as well.
So all right, so you're doing your thing. Life is wrecking everything because you don't have a diagnosis. When you're finally diagnosed, did you have a sigh of relief and then a holy shit moment?
There actually was, bizarrely enough. I mean, it was, and I think other people have experienced this too, of, okay, first is, I'm not crazy. I'm not as crazy as they've made me feel all of this time. There is something. And then later it hits the, oh, crap, this is something I actually have to fight and deal with. And I was in so much pain about my knee, and the recovery of that cancer at the moment almost seemed secondary to, oh, first they fixed my knee, can I go hiking? And then the second thing is, oh, hold on a second, we have to talk chemo.
Right.
So it was all a big bag. But yeah, there was that relief of there's something the thing that I've been telling you all along is true. And then we had to deal with, oh, I hate what's true.
Right. So let's talk about that then. Once you knew it was something bad, did you stay in Iowa or did you go home? What were the decisions that were happening then?
I was very strange in that I kept it a secret. My mother was there. I had friends that were there, and for some reason, my brain put it in a category of this is not something I'm going to tell anybody else other than my doctors. It's part of me. I still can't explain it. It took me a very long time to communicate it to other people. But what became very clear was that doing chondrosarcoma doesn't typically respond to chemotherapy and radiation historically, or it didn't at that time. Surgery seemed incredibly risky because of the position that it was in my spine, at risk paralysis or death, two really great things. And there were a couple people that were starting up clinical. I went shopping all around the U.S. to talk to different doctors and different cancer centers all around the world, and there were several clinical trials that were just cropping up just as I was there, just as I was diagnosed, to be treated chemotherapy and try it and see if it would work. And it was an 8-week intensive, cross your fingers and hope this shows any kind of response. And I was one of the very lucky ones where I did show some shrinkage of the tumor, and then I continued beyond what the clinical trial was prescribed, but at least showed, okay, there's some shrinkage of tumor, and we can keep going on this and see what's happening. And it's been a very long series of staying on those different drug medications, staying off of chemo and radiation, and off and on for about 3 years, to the point where now I'm very fortunate that there's everything else has gone away. There's a tiny cluster of cells still hanging out in my spine, as I like to think about it,
right.
That is managed if I do pretty regularly intense medication, but it seems to not be moving, knock wood.
No,
so we can't get rid of it, but we can keep it small and contained, and, that's what we hope for, I guess.
What struck me most about what you just articulated was that you were actually on a clinical trial, and that is so rare for people that aren't 80 or 8. How is that made aware in your world? Like, usually the doctors either don't think you need one. They're not aware that there is one. They don't think to tell you because there's bad stuff happening, or you may not be a human being that would even think to know that's something you look for.
I was pretty aggressive in my research as soon as I was in my own bubble alone, because by my own choosing. I should point out I have a lot of wonderful people in my life. For some reason I chose not to use any of them. And I just went into a crazy workaholic research mode and went to every single cancer center I could find and asked them questions and asked them who was available for clinical trials and what would they do. And every doctor was saying, oh, well, chondrosarcoma, you never use that for clinical, you never use chemo for that. You never use chemo for that. And I would keep asking them, is that still true? Is that, this is the last statistic I saw, is that still true? And I started to hear rumblings about something they were just trying in several different hospitals. So I just showed up on their doorsteps and went to their rooms and asked if they were the ones doing the clinical trial. I was a kind of a crazy person, but I was a crazy person in the name of finding out from as many different current databases as I could get my hands on. And my doctors in Los Angeles were pretty amazing about getting me at least access to talking to the right people at the right time.
I love that you.
And it was just a matter of luck.
No, you're right. You very cleverly channeled your inner Woodward and Bernstein to do all the reconnaissance necessary. I mean, yeah. You're a writer, producer, essayist, but do you have that? It sounds like you have a journalist bone, at the core of your curiosity.
I have an absolute curiosity just about human nature and human behavior, and I really am stubborn in terms of I don't like being told no. And if somebody says there's one thing I can't have, that's the one thing I want to insist on having. And it's in some cases it's not an honorable quality, but in this case it paid off because I just wouldn't stop because it didn't seem like there should only be one answer. I genuinely lucked out in that there was something cropping up just as I was experiencing this. Otherwise, I think I would have immediately done the surgery. And this cancer was not far gone enough where we were able to say, let's risk it these 6 to 8 weeks. Let's see if we get any kind of results.
So one of the elephants in the room for young adults, I always have to explain when people say, well, why just young adults? Don't we matter too, Granny? And I was like, yes, everyone matters, but we're just different. And the defining factor as to what gets people to say, oh, of course, is fertility. That
yes.
Chemotherapy and clinical trial, they can jeopardize your reproductive health. Was that something you discovered on your own, or was it not even in the rhetoric of anything?
When I signed on to do the clinical trial, it was one of the first things that they pointed out to me, which I know isn't the case for other people, and that's unfortunate. For myself, it was pointed out, and it was I was always somebody who I thought in the back of my head, I never really wanted to birth children that I would want to adopt sometime at some point in my life. And I was fairly certain that was the path I was going to choose, but it wasn't until there was a doctor in front of my face saying, do you want to take some time to preserve your fertility, or do you want to chase after this thing that you can have right now, that it became very clear of, yeah, I want to chase after the thing that's going to stop the cancer growing in me. And I know other patients who have had a very different experience, that choice has made it very clear of what they want and what they're willing to do to preserve that opportunity. For me, it just became crystal clear that wasn't something I was interested in preserving or needed to preserve.
Right. And I first of all, it's a very admirable choice when you're staring down the barrel of your mortality. And you're right. There are many women who forego treatment starting immediately to go through the 12-week or the 3-month or the 10-day process, but their cancer will have accelerated in many cases, and they wind up getting a more aggressive stage, all to guarantee their own right to be a mom. And this is one of the major legislative issues that we're following on the back end from a payer perspective. It's not covered.
Right.
Even if you're made aware of it, you can't afford it. So what good is it at the end of the day? But I think it's a very noble and brave decision you made. But there are certain instances where women aren't even given the choice. The choice is made by the doctor.
Not. No, which is infuriating because they don't, there's a long list of side effects of any kind of medication that you're going to take. They don't go over every single headache that I might incur, but but that's not a headache. That's your future, and that is your whole body. And it just goes to an overall perspective that I think in addition to doctors and all people in the medical field and outside the medical field who aren't as well versed in what is different for a young adult cancer. There's also people who are less inclined to spend more time with what are specifically a woman's experience. And It goes from everything for how we treat pain and how women and men respond to pain differently, how they articulate it differently, to what goes on in their bodies and what we feel is necessary to preserve in them.
Very well said. So somewhere between you choosing to keep your diagnosis in secret and when you wrote the Elle article, people must have eventually found out what was going on.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I kept it until there's a difference between being secretive to me or being quiet about it and private about it to being a liar. And I pride myself in not being the liar. That I kept some things quiet, and in typical Hollywood fashion, when it became clear that I was going to have to amend my work schedule and do things, I called my agents first. I believe my agents were the first people to know I had cancer.
Okay.
Which is terribly bizarre and messed up, but they knew, and then my boss knew at the time. And then eventually I knew that the side effects were going to render me bald and sick looking. And that was a point where I was really committed to the specific treatment I was on and was ready to let people in as I saw fit. But for me, it was very much a process, and for me, and accepting the reality that was happening for me. And I've gotten a lot of flack in retroactively, but I understand that too.
No, so we have 5 minutes left. I could talk to you for 2
Sure.
hours. 2 hours, I could talk to you for 2 hours because this is so compelling.
Anytime.
No, I'm serious. And I'd love to meet
I am
you.
too.
I come to LA a lot too, so I'd love to meet you in person. But so
fantastic.
So you write this article, which is clearly hitting a nerve for so many people. I was misdiagnosed for 6 months personally 20 years ago, so I hit a nerve with
Unreal.
me. So in terms of response to the article and then how being affected personally changed the way you might have contributed to a narrative as a Hollywood producer and writer for TV shows that deal with cancer.
Remind me of your first question.
No, the first question was
like
it was the ultimate mic drop. I confronted the doctor who missed my cancer in Elle magazine.
Yeah.
That's a big deal.
I wanted to. I felt like obviously the cancer story overall is so big and sprawling, and I wanted to do something specific because I was finding something that really made me angry. And when I'm angry about something, I know it's something worth chasing. And I knew that it would apply to people who would experience cancer. I've also had some pretty tremendous responses from people who are dealing with autoimmune disease, some women who are dealing with postpartum. I had a fellow writer friend who just got out of the ER because of 2 misdiagnoses and a botched surgery and just called me and said, okay, now I get it. So it's having this kind of ripple effect that I'm both horrified by and encouraged by, because I realized this is a story and an angle to a story that I need to keep pursuing, and I keep needing to keep beating my loud, obnoxious drum as much as possible about it.
And you're clearly doing that.
I'm sorry?
You're clearly doing that.
I'm trying, and as far as Grace, I work on a group of tremendous people and so smart, and we have so many amazing medical resources available to us. We have doctors who are on staff who are so fantastic and excellent leaders. And what's lovely about it is everyone on staff has a different human experience. There's someone on staff who is a childhood cancer survivor, so she has a point of view. There are people who don't have specific illnesses but have family members who've gone something, or some are parents, some are not, some are single, some are married, newly married, some have been married forever. And it's all those types of stories that we're passionate about, that we experience in our lives, that we get to bring to the table. And this is my experience, and I had the lovely pleasure of writing an episode that aired a few weeks ago that was featuring a young girl who was a second-time cancer survivor and was very focused on advocating for herself and her own rights and her own treatment. It was a different story than mine, cancer-wise, but it was something that I was really proud of getting to pitch and talk through and have the writers all come together, and as we do, and help each other tell the stories in the way we really feel passionate about telling. And I'm so glad that I got to do that.
And that goes back to where I started our first talk, is authenticity in storytelling, specifically around young adults. And that, we're so used to, we're bombarded by bald kids and old people getting cancer, and that's the way it is, and that's fine. But when you have the chance to tell the story about someone that isn't in that age group and how it's different, that's a game changer.
Absolutely.
We had the pleasure of working with Sean Patrick Smith at ABC Family recently on the Chasing Life series for 2.5 years. And I got to, basically coach Joni and I forget the other writer's name on what it really would be like for Italia's character April to go through this, and this, to the point, and we couldn't possibly have planned for this, but they put stupid cancer products on set.
Amazing. I love that.
So that was that blew the doors out of the water for where the young adult narrative or voice is with respect to authenticity in Hollywood and pop culture. So that was like a seminal moment for everyone here in our universe.
It's amazing.
So you're part of that, and that's a really something we need to step back and say, wow, it's actually a thing now.
Well, I feel absolutely out of my mind lucky for many, many reasons. But how many people get to experience something as awful as I did, but then find ways to be productive and channel into something that will hopefully be helpful to everyone. And there isn't one cancer story. So I'm so glad that the more people that are speaking up in this young adult cancer group and the people will be able to share their viewpoints, that there isn't one look, there isn't one sound, there isn't one experience, there isn't one trajectory. And the more people that are out there telling their stories, I feel like the more people they're going to help, and more people are going to be at home sick in a bed or not sick in a bed saying, hey, that's me, I see me up there. And what better way to encourage somebody who's going through cancer than to be able to see that?
We are all snowflakes.
Yes, exactly.
Let everyone know where they can find you online.
I am at Finchie, ERFINCHIE on Twitter and on Instagram.
Fantastic. Elisabeth Finch, young adult survivor.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, stage 3 chondro. There's lots of, you like syllables. Chondrosarcoma, which is cool.
Yeah.
And terrible. But yeah, Google, I confronted my doctor who missed my cancer. The article Elle magazine changed the rules for what's possible. Thank you for joining us. I look forward to meeting you in person.
Thanks for having me.
All right, take care. Elisabeth Finch, everyone.
Take care.
All right, and now the news.
Hello, I'm Kent Brockman, and this is Eye on Cancer.
Just the facts, ma'am.
Head on over to events.stupidcancer.org. That is events.stupidcancer.org. Sign up for meetup alerts and never miss an event again. If you'd like to learn more about hosting your own Stupid Cancer meetup, visit stupidcancer.org/meetup. All right, Matt, we've got some events happening. Just one to be exact, in Anchorage, Alaska.
Well, that's good news.
Yes.
No one should face cancer alone because isolation sucks. Download Instapeer for iPhone, iPad, and Android. Create your account and instantly start chatting with someone just like you who's been there and walked in your shoes. Join our community of thousands of cancer patients, survivors, and caregivers right now on your mobile device. Instapeer.
We launch a newsfeed aggregator on Tumblr for all the articles, blogs, and stories we couldn't possibly have the time to post on social media. Check out what we're reading 24/7 and don't miss a beat. Subscribe over at stupidcancer.org/feed.
For young adults, clinical trials are a red-hot mess. So we are throwing our hat in the ring to make some sense of this madness. Introducing I Am Not a Trial. Real young adults, real faces, and real stories plucked straight out of our own community. Watch the entire video series at IamNotATrial.com.
Support our programs and services by heading over to stupidcancerstore.org. You'll feel great and look great in your new Stupid Cancer gear. That's stupidcancerstore.org. Be proud. Wear Stupid Cancer. And that is your Stupid Cancer News.
All right, in our main segment, Aniela McGuinness is an actress, recent breast cancer graduate, and created a viral photo series that used humor to show the different stages of her mastectomy. Really excited to have her on the show to talk all about what she's up to. The campaign is called My Breast Choice. Please welcome Aniela McGuinness. Hello.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me.
We were debating the origins of your name.
Yes.
There's a poll happening right now as to what your answer is going to be.
Okay. I guess drum roll. My first name is actually my great grandmother's name, and it's from Poland.
Okay.
So it's my mother's grandmother's name.
So there's no tilde. It's Aniela.
Aniela.
Yes.
Aniela.
Aniela. Got it. Well, yeah, the tilde was a bit of a conversation.
And I'm used to people never pronouncing it correctly, so I just kind of answered anything.
I'll just call you. How about I call you McGuinness?
I'm used to that too.
Was that
yes,
your kind of like your college nickname? Hey, McGuinness, get over here.
And we're getting close to St. Patrick's Day, so
That is true.
I feel like that's appropriate.
We can channel some green beer during our interview.
Oh, nice.
Yes. So thank you for coming on the show. I'm really excited to talk to you about this. I was really taken by everything that you're doing. You know, we don't really look at breast cancer as like pink in October. We're equal. You know, the democratization of the lack of ribbons and colors that are way too prevalent in everything we think about. So it's good to have a breast cancer story, you know, as the spring is starting to happen in the end of February when nothing is pink, which is great.
Yes.
So, and we typically see lots of people agreeing that, you know, the pink nausea and all this nonsense. But I get the gist from everything you're doing, as disruptive as it is. You're on that page too.
Yes, completely.
Yeah.
Completely.
So let's start with your story. You have, regrettably, or for what it's worth, you've been on both sides of the coin. You've been a caregiver to your mom who was diagnosed with ovarian, and then you yourself, after your mom passed away, got breast cancer.
Yeah, a year later.
There's no contest in this world, but that's pretty tough.
No, exactly. And I don't want to be the winner of that contest.
Right.
They have a really bad life. Yes, but the funny thing is, not funny, haha, but funny, I've talked to other women who've had this exact same story where their mothers died of cancer and then they got cancer the year later.
It's amazing.
So I'm not alone in this. There's many of us out there who have crazy stories and they're exactly the same.
One of the most poignant things I can mention right now is that my co-founder, Kenny, who's here on the air, was 17 when his father was diagnosed with testicular cancer. So at the DNA of stupid cancer is the young adult caregiver to their parent.
Yeah,
And
which sucks so bad.
Yeah, I know. It's the invisible children cancer story of America is when you're 17, 18. I mean, you're just so young and you have to be there for your mom and your dad when maybe you should be there for your mom and dad when they're 80 and not 40. So
and your friends don't get it.
No.
Because you become your parent's parent.
Yes.
When you're caregiving. And I found a lot of anger with that. I don't know if you guys found it as well, but I know I was angry to have to be the caregiver, but I couldn't say it because my mother had cancer. So how can you say that you're angry? Because you don't have cancer.
Right. And then you get the guilt for thinking that way in the first place. Yeah. It's you belong in the club. You're here with us. Yeah.
And I got it on both sides.
Yes.
I'm fully in this club now. Can't get rid of me.
Oh my God, I'm going to get some tattoos on your arms or something like that. So then at 32, how were you diagnosed with breast cancer? Was it a fluke, a self-exam? Was it, what happened? Because you're not getting mammograms that young.
Well, I was.
Oh,
I found out that I had the BRCA1 mutation when I was 26.
Oh,
while my mother was still going through ovarian cancer. We decided, you know what, let's get tested. And so I started getting mammograms and MRIs done every 6 months. So I started early, but I never thought I'd actually get cancer. Like I just did this because I was supposed to.
Right.
Because that's what I'm a rule follower. So I'm like, all right, I'm supposed to do this. But I never thought I was going to get cancer, ever. I thought it was my mother's disease. And after she passed away, I was like, you know what? I'm going to get a preventative mastectomy. I was still a little younger than they recommended. They were saying 35, but I was like, you know what? Let's just do this. I want to start my life. I feel like I'm on hold. Let's just get this done. And I decided, I'm like, let me get my last MRI for old time's sake, because I'm not going to need these anymore.
Famous
Why
last
not?
words.
And they found it on that one.
Yeah.
So I got diagnosed with cancer 3 days prior to my scheduled appointment with the breast surgeon.
Did that come in handy or was that weird?
It came in handy. Other people, their reaction is like how horrifying, like, oh my gosh, what bad luck. And in all honesty, it just confirmed my choice. Where I was maybe 80% sure I wanted to do it. And after being diagnosed, I was 100% sure.
Right.
And so that for me was a huge benefit. And I was diagnosed and didn't have to make any phone calls for doctors. I already had everyone in place. I already had spent the time finding what breast surgeon I wanted, what reconstructive surgeon I wanted, without the pressure of that ticking time bomb of like, oh, I have cancer. So I got to do it at a very leisurely pace and kind of, shop around, like really figure out who I wanted. So when I got diagnosed, I just sat there and waited for the next 3 days until I showed up to my appointment.
I think what's most intriguing to me in this story is that you were made aware of hereditary risk, and that is not very often discussed.
Yes.
So kudos on having a great doctor. I mean, was that something that you and your mother discovered on your own, or was it brought to your attention?
It's hard to remember back at this point because it's been about 8-9 years. But I remember us hearing about the mutation. My mother just figured she had it. My mother had had breast cancer, she had had skin cancer, and then she got ovarian cancer. And so she just assumed she had a genetic risk for cancer. And she was with Sylvester, which is a research hospital. And so she figured that if she got tested, she already assumed she was positive, but if she got tested for the mutation, they would then, insurance would pay to have me get tested. Where otherwise, it's a really expensive test.
Got it.
So she got tested, came back positive, and then I got tested at the same hospital and came back positive. So it was thankfully to my mom going, you know what, I want you to be able to find this information out.
So this was many, many years ago, and yet you took advantage of the early internet to start documenting things.
Yes.
You took the risk that YouTube might become something one day.
Yeah.
And so what I mean, I think that's such a sign of the times because, we talk about my diagnosis in the 90s. We didn't take pictures back then. Like cameras were like this foreign object that you took to Disney World or something like that. So, but even like 10 years ago or 9 years ago, no one would have necessarily thought, oh, selfies, because it didn't really exist back then. But you decided to have the chutzpah to start documenting all of this. Can you tell us about that decision and how it went?
Yes. Well, it's funny. That first moment when I actually, because I've videotaped myself 2 hours after my mom died from cancer, talking about it, saying, okay, my mom's dead. This is how this feels. And I was only doing that because I decided I keep having these random attempts of like, oh, I'll do a video blog. And then I realized it's a lot of work.
Yes, it is. Post-production is a bitch.
Yeah, I'm like, oh man. But I had just, for my 30th birthday, I went and did a silent meditation retreat for 10 days. And I was like, I'm going to document this. And in the midst of that, when I came back out, the day I came out from that meditation retreat, I found out that my mom had chosen to go into hospice. And she quit doing all of her treatment. And I was like, oh, okay, because let me actually document how meditation interacts with grief and the process of somebody dying. So it was this very, like, things morph. So that's why I started, was I'm like, let me just document the process of grief and somebody dying. But I never videotaped my mother because I just felt that was an invasion of her privacy.
Sure.
I instead just videotaped my emotional process of dealing with it. And I found it to be actually very therapeutic.
Well, it's a very 21st century way to pioneer what it really means to be young facing this disease and making difficult choices.
Yes. And it's nice to look back and go, oh, naive little you. You thought that was the worst of it.
Right, exactly.
But it gives perspective. So after she passed and I had some, that grieving time, and I finally decided I'm going to get a mastectomy done. I'm also an actress by trade. And I'm like, okay, well, if I get a mastectomy done, I'm out of commission for 6 weeks to 2 months. And being a, coming from that narcissistic actor point of view, I'm like, well, I should probably, like, I'm going to not have a career during that time. Let me make something during this. And I was like, I'm going to make a documentary following a preventative mastectomy. So I started videotaping, just dealing with the idea of getting a preventive mastectomy. And I just kept recording stuff, not knowing, if I would use it or not. And then I got diagnosed with cancer. So that's kind of how it happened.
Wow.
Was I was in the process of thinking, oh, I'm going to document this for this random documentary I'm going to make maybe one day. And it turned into something completely different.
But you kept going.
I kept going. I just kept going because I figure, what's the harm of recording this? Even if I never use it,
right.
What's the harm of it?
But it's just so generational to me how I assume I'm 40, I'll be 42 soon, but what I'm finding in the Gen X millennial space is that there is so much more openness to humor, and that makes a lot of people uncomfortable in some places, like your mom or your dad or whatever. But at the end of the day, this is how we're choosing to deal with it, and we now have the tools to let that exist in the public space. And a lot of what you write about, like one of your blogs is called "The 5 Weird Reasons I Love My Mastectomy." It harkens me back to a woman named Geraldine Lucas, who wrote for Lifetime about breast cancer, but she wrote a book called "Why I Wore Lipstick to My Mastectomy." And it just like, why are you even telling me these things? I don't want to know these things. But the whole book is laughing through, tragedy and how she was taking ownership over things she didn't have control over. And I see that in everything that you're doing right now as well. And you're clearly an actress. You clearly, the public spotlight is your place to be, and it resonates really, really well.
Yeah, I feel comfortable there. And I found, though, for me, a big part of it, when I finally really got into it and got through the idea of, I'm going to do this because I'm an actress, but I realized I'm going to do this because there's nothing else out there that resonated with me. And I'm like, I'm going to make something that I would have wanted to see, which is why I came up with the photo series. Because when I was looking for mastectomy photos, they were all either the medical photos of, headless women, just their breast under fluorescent lighting. And it was a hard pill to swallow that this is what I was getting into. Or they were the black and white, very somber photos with a woman with a rose up against her scar. And I appreciate those photos. I appreciate women doing that. But for me, it didn't speak to me.
Right.
And I found that I was more scared after seeing those photos, and I wanted to turn away more than I actually learned or felt better from them. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to show that there is humor and there is joy, and there is while there's tragedy, there always lives joy at the same time. We just have to look for it.
So let's then talk about that. So tell us more about some of the specific projects that you've been working on ever since. So you were an internet success in the sense that you accomplished what you wanted to, used a new medium to get it done, and you now have been channeling that to your benefit. You're owning what you went through clearly, but what's been the takeaway to all the people who have become your fans?
The takeaway. Well, in all honesty, this photo series that I made, it went internationally viral, and I found it very interesting because nothing changed within my own life. And I was like, oh, this is really interesting. So why make something? And I realized it's because I enjoy talking to people. And that's the greatest thing that came out of this photo series is I talked to women and men all over the world who are going through this or about to go through this. And I'll give them my phone number. I'm like, here you go. Let's talk. Or we'll Skype. I just talked to a young girl who's 16 and in Ireland who has a very rare form of cancer. And we could talk about how much this sucks and the fun in it and the jokes and the laughter and realizing being bald. And so that I've been enjoying. I've been enjoying making these friendships with women who are going through one of the most extreme moments of their lives and being able to show them where to find joy. Like, it's okay. I can't tell you if you're going to be okay, but I can tell you that the experience of it is okay. There's nothing to be ashamed of. Feel what you're feeling, feel sad, feel angry, and then also feel joy and laugh and look in the mirror and realize how ridiculous it is that we look like a thumb. And that,
yeah.
I found that there was so much joy in this experience of cancer. I really did. I relate it to, because I personally really didn't care for the term cancer survivor when I got diagnosed.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember the first time somebody called me a cancer survivor, I almost was like, screw you. How dare you call me that? Because for me, it felt like there were only two options with it. It was either you're going to survive or you're going to die.
Right.
And
is that why you use the word graduate, breast cancer graduate?
Yeah. So instead, a friend and I, who I met because she was referred to me because she got cancer, and we were talking about like, what else could we call ourselves? And it came up with the term graduate, breast cancer graduate. And it's very much like college. You meet other breast cancer graduates or students, and it's like going to the same college. You're like, oh my God, you went there too? Oh, what major did you have?
Right.
Oh, I majored in breast. You majored in prostate? Cool. And instead it changes into this idea of what can you learn from it? These courses that we're taking of cancer, and how am I going to use this knowledge to better others and better the world when I graduate from this? And if I have to go back and get a second major or get a bachelor or a master's degree or PhD, there's nothing to be ashamed of in that. I'm learning something new. I'm furthering my education. And if, heaven forbid, I don't complete the major, it's not taken away from me. That title doesn't get revoked.
Well, it goes back to the Stuart Scott quote and many others like him, where the gist of it was not about how long you live, it's how you live and what you choose to do while you're living. And we all have an expiration date, and that's kind of cliche to say here on the Air on a Cancer Show, but it's true. And we're always going to wait for the other shoe to drop, and anxiety and follow-ups and things like that. But you're really owning your story. I was hoping you could talk more about what you're currently working on. You said you're editing a documentary film.
Yes.
Is that a new project?
Yeah. While I was going through cancer and chemo and my mastectomy, a friend and I co-wrote a one-woman show, which I performed while I was on chemo, that used the footage from that I had captured. Like, I recorded myself finding out the news that I got cancer. Like, I hit record and had that footage coming out of surgery. And so we put all of this footage together of my doctor's office dance parties at every chemo, and we interspersed it between sketch comedy, because I come from improv background. So we used sketch, we used stand-up, and we used these videos and made this one-woman show that isn't a normal narrative. And now we end up filming it, and we're making that into, the best term for it is documentary, because it has that footage of that from being diagnosed and the process, but it also contains these sketches that I perform by myself, like where I am playing cancer, and cancer and I are bargaining for what body parts I get to keep.
That's actually very funny. We joke here. I mean, you can only, like, Jews can say Jew jokes, like we cancer jokes here. Is how many body parts can you live without to function? And like, well, we don't really need a spleen and the breasts and testicles, and you don't really, limbs are overrated. So what's the minimum you can get by without being like a football, just getting kicked around as a person?
Exactly.
And not get cancer.
I don't have ovaries anymore, or fallopian tubes, or a cervix, or any of that stuff. So
right.
I was like, man, I'm technically a post-op transsexual.
Yeah.
Which I'm cool with. I'm like, all right, I'll take that title. So there's so many, like, it. Yeah, I don't need it. I get hot flashes, and I'm in menopause, but it's cool.
But that's the young adult story that doesn't really get out there. Like, you shouldn't be barren because you had cancer. something as benign or devastating or sensationalized as that may sound to different people, cancer shouldn't, whether you want to be a mom or not is irrelevant. Cancer shouldn't take that liberty away to be a mom or dad. And I mean, did you have that hysterectomy knowing, or was that even a discussion when you made that choice?
Well, I knew that I planned on getting this done. The date got moved up once I got diagnosed with cancer. So I didn't technically have to do it right now. But it was such a high risk for me to get ovarian cancer that it wasn't worth it for me.
No, of course. And the BRCA gene can be the devil that you don't want to know, and it can come back and kill you or bite you in the ass anytime.
Yeah, anytime. So it was worth it. And in all honesty, I don't have a period anymore. So I kind of feel like I got a pretty good end of that.
Oh, boy.
Like...
There's your cancer humor right there, folks.
But it's awesome. Like I ended up donating all of my tampons and maxi pads to the homeless shelter.
Wow.
Like when I was like, oh, I don't need these anymore. Like I was thrilled to give them all away.
You know, I don't know if you know this organization, they're called the Young Survival Coalition. They're having their annual conference in Atlanta this Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I'll be there. But it's an aggregation of 600 to 800 women between like 30 and 50 who all have faced various different versions of breast cancer and, you know, deal with genetic issues or mastectomy or postop, all these things. And you'd be surprised that it's not too dissimilar, your attitude. Everyone is very, you know, like if you talk to a citizen, a normal person, they think you're crazy, or they don't want to talk to you because how could you make a joke about, you know, enjoying not having a period at you know, at 35, 40, 40, you know. But that's our culture. That's who we are. That's who you're part of, and you embody it so well. I guess we have about 2 or 3 minutes left. What do you want other women to know, or what would you say? And again, another cliche statement, but what would be your marquee byline for women to know what you've chosen to do and what their options are?
Oh, goodness. Well, there's a catchphrase that I put into my videos, which is you can't choose what happens to you in life, but you can choose how you look at it, which is why it's my breast choice. But it's true. You can't choose what happens to you at all, but we do get to choose how we look at it. And that makes all of the difference. And we are allowed to laugh. Like we are allowed to make fun of this. It's your cancer. You can do whatever you want. Social norms and social rules go out the window the moment you got diagnosed.
Right. Well said. I think that, again, it totally embodies the spirit and the culture of what it means to be young and get sick and have this life-altering experience. And again, like sincere condolences on the loss of your mom. But in hindsight, you got tested. Mm-hmm. And, you know, you were vigilant to the extent of almost like happy ignorance or happy denial, which is amazing. And then boom, you know, but it all wound up serving you because it was detected.
Mm-hmm. Completely. And I'm glad my mother didn't get to see this, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, that's a difficult discussion to have to begin with, but yes. Well, I'm really inspired. I hope to meet you one day.
Yes, I know we will. The cancer circle's small.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what you should come to CancerCon. Come to Denver and hang out with us for like 3.5 days in Denver at the end of April.
No, I was born in Denver too, so I haven't been back since I was like 3.
Oh, we're in love with the city. We're in love with the city.
I need to get out there with you. And you guys are in New York, correct?
Yeah, we're in New York. So anytime you're in town, just
I'll be there next week.
Oh, well, look at that. Well, maybe we'll see you next week. All right. All right.
Well, awesome. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Great. So Aniela McGuinness, actress, recent breast cancer graduate, creator of our video series. She is the lead on My Breast Choice. Give us a URL or a website.
It is mybreastchoiceshow.com. And as well, you can go to facebook.com/mybreastchoice. And YouTube is youtube.com/mybreastchoice. And then I do Instagram, which is Aniela McG. Yep, that's everything.
The whole circle. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Okay. Take care.
Thanks.
And now it is time for our closing sequence.
Prepare to activate.
I hear there's rumors on the internets.
You ever seen a grown man naked?
And so, to all of you, a fond farewell.
Hooray! I'm helping.
You are a meathead.
Oh, Magoo, you've done it again.
That was so terrible, I think you gave me cancer.
Okay, folks, that's our show, the 377th episode of The Stupid Cancer Show. Never miss an episode by subscribing to the podcast on iTunes and following us on SoundCloud.
I'd like to thank our guests, Elisabeth Finch and Aniela McGuinness, for joining us on the show here. Broadcasting since 2007, The Stupid Cancer Show is a production of Stupid Cancer, the largest charity comprehensively addressing young adult cancer, online at stupidcancer.org. Coming to you now from the chemo deck, and on behalf of my whole team here at The Stupid Cancer Show, we hope you had as much fun as we did poking the stick at Stupid Cancer. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you back here on the next exciting podcast of The Stupid Cancer Show. Goodbye, folks.